Hey everyone, welcome to What Just Happened. Super excited. We've got two people here, luxury experts. I am not an expert, so I am really going to be a student on this one. We're going to welcome Silvia Coleman and Marie Driscoll, and we're really going to get into it. Marie, we'll start with you. Give us a little background on where you're at in the industry.
Today, I'm unbelievably honored and delighted to be with you. I'm part of Rethink Retail's top experts for the last 4 years, so really honored by that accolade. I teach at Parsons, Fashion Retailing and Buying. I teach at FIT, and I teach at the City University of New York. I began my career as an equity analyst on Wall Street, and I won awards for being the best stock picker from the Wall Street Journal. And while on Wall Street, I led the retail team, and I covered luxury fashion retailers and brands. And in the last 10 years, I've worked with Coresight, where I covered fashion, retail, luxury, and beauty.
Silvia, how about you?
Christine and Marie, super excited to be here with you. I am also a former equity analyst and before that M&A banker, so we have some overlap there. And I'm an alumni of Parsons as well, just to throw that in. But yeah, many years, more than 15 years of experience in investment banking as a banker, as an equity analyst specializing in luxury. I was with Threadstone Partners and with Shattuck Hammond Partners. And about 3 years ago, I became the head of research, market intelligence, and thought leadership for CXG. We're a consulting company specialized in the luxury sector. We cover all segments. We're kicking off hospitality as well. We specialize in the customer experience end of things, which is such an important aspect of the luxury journey, especially now as we're emphasizing experiential and in-store. And so I'm excited to be here with you.
My first question is, does luxury seem messier now than ever before? I feel like it's going through a huge transition, and it's causing a bit of chaos, a bit of that uncertainty that comes with transition. Silvia, where do you stand with that?
Yeah, I think luxury, messier is a good word. Maybe it's more complex. We had a very nice resurgence following COVID, where we had this big pullback, and then we had this explosion, revenge spending across all geographies. And maybe we didn't do such a great job of calibrating that a normalization would eventually happen. I think we have a lot of macroeconomic geopolitical factors now giving us a little bit of the jitters and shaking up the industry. But yeah, I think luxury brands are at a crossroads where they have to really refocus, find a new way to speak to Gen Z, find a new way to fit themselves into this new ecosystem and this new landscape, and reposition. And also, I think one of the key things, I don't know, saying messy, yes, but I think it's all about value proposition. So I think when you notice that your customers are moving away, you're losing customers, you really need to double down on your value proposition and think about, what are we actually offering here? Luxury brands have had a combination of the price volume combination is always important in revenue and growth drivers. And I think what we've seen in the last few years is a lot of input from the very important customers, the ultra high net worth, which luxury brands have really doubled down on, right? But even that customer is now standing there and saying, what's the value proposition? I'm not blindly spending on something because a name is attached to it, because it's a luxury good. Maybe explain to me how this is going to ameliorate my life, and what are you adding to my life other than this product that I see here? And so that whole shift now towards experiential, even among ultra high net worths, or maybe I should say especially amongst those customers, is very evident. So luxury is at a crossroads where it's repositioning away from just a product, a transactional moment, to really providing experiences, moments that are lasting and memorable for the luxury client.
Marie?
I would use the word blurred. And I would use the word democratization to describe what's happened with luxury. I think COVID has changed almost everything, and it certainly changed luxury. And during COVID, luxury products provided the most experience that a consumer could have, right? Because they're packed with emotion, desire, aspiration. And number one, they provided experience during a time when we had a dearth of experience. We were locked at home. Number two, trillions of dollars were poured into households, and it came through spending not on going back and forth to work, not on social occasions, not on vacations, not on theater, but on luxury goods. So incredible demand. At the same time, prices went up because prices went up everywhere. And I don't think that there was that much innovation happening in luxury. I think luxury in the last 25 years has really looked at the Chinese to drive a lot of the growth. And when I compare it to what happened in the mall, in retail in the 1990s or the early 2000s, there was a lot of a copy and paste mentality. We put out a new product, we change a little bit, it's the same logo. That's not innovative. And you come out the other side of COVID and there's a lack of innovation. Prices are up 50 to 55%. Consumers are struggling with, and high net worth are struggling too. And they also look at the economic value of purchasing. But consumers across the board, the middle income consumer does account for about 40% of luxury spending. Those people really have felt economic pressure. So the combination of economic pressure for food, general merchandise, and then luxury prices up 50%. And where's the qualitative difference? What are you giving me that's unique and different?
Okay, so let's take a second, because as I said, I'm a student of luxury, because you have the luxury that pops up in your mind, which is like the COVID driven shopping, which is like the Gucci logoed bags and accessories, and the cohort there, the Yves Saint Laurent, and really just these accessory driven purchases that, I'm always like, wow, that has a comma in it. It's like north of $2,000, $3,000, $5,000. And that's what one version of what luxury is that I think is the COVID impacted change up. But there's a side, and there are many sides to luxury. And again, I just want to get my hands around it, because you have really good numbers coming out of like unimaginable priced apparel, such as Bruno Cucinelli, Giorgio Armani, Miu Miu. They're reporting like incredible numbers, and they're apparel driven, and there's that quiet luxury, non-logoed, just real value driven. Sylvia, to your point. So when we speak about luxury per se, it's the classic luxury customer that's buying the apparel. That is very different from the other accessory sunglasses. I don't know what that means in terms of our discussion going forward. One of the things that I think is particularly blurred and messy is the change up in creative directors. And it seems so lacking of direction. It's like a quarterback where they get one season to kill it. And then if it doesn't work, they're like, okay, we're trading you. It seems so short-sighted, but the pressure is so high for success. I want to spend some time talking about the musical chairs of creative directors and why it's so short and they're getting kicked out or moved around, and that piece, that other missing business piece. Sylvia, I'll go to you.
Yeah, these switch ups, these short-term changes are in response to a little bit attention spans today, right? Are very short. People generally, the consumer, and I'm specifically talking about when we're thinking of Gen Z and millennials, there's no long enough attention span to see out, okay, we've hired a new designer. Let's give that person a runway. Let's see how they do. It's 1 or 2 collections. And if you've made an impact, great. And if you haven't, you're out. It's very tactical on the part of brands. It's not, in my view, strategic, but it's driven by, well, we're seeing that person being very successful over there at brand XYZ. Let's bring them over here. Let's offer them something super attractive, a platform where they think they can be successful. But it's all about, you have to find the right fit. The DNA has to match, right? Culturally, aesthetically, you have to find that alignment, and that's not so easy to do. And when we talk about these dynamic duos of the past, those were people that found each other organically and built something from scratch. A lot of those brands have been absorbed into big conglomerates today, and the dictates around how you're going to run that business come from up top. They're no longer independent brands. And oftentimes when you're independent and you're not answerable to shareholders, for example, as you would be as a brand that's part of a larger publicly traded conglomerate, you may have more artistic leeway and more time to experiment and to see where it goes. And all of that has all of that has changed a lot. And a lot of it has to do with what I just mentioned, the structure, the corporate structures of some of these brands and who they're answerable to. And that it's a very short-term, quarterly earnings driven. And so I think that I would love to see what, for example, we have LVMH that's very nurturing towards its brands, the brands that it brings into the fold. It lets these maisons run with a large degree of independence because they want to preserve that brand DNA and that the mission of the brand, the original idea behind it, and because that's how you keep customers in the fold. So I think it would be nice to see either bigger groups continuing to nurture this young talent and letting design talent have a longer runway rather than doing these constant switch ups. It's very disruptive. One of the reasons I think why brands also switch around a lot is because, especially with Gen Z, we see a lot of, how can I put it, fickleness. There's not a lot of loyalty to brands and they jump around. So I think maybe brands are responding to that a little bit in terms of these creative designer switch ups.
So for me, I think luxury is incredible. Luxury exists as an idea, like in Plato's world of forms. And a brand exists like that, but a brand also has to react to what's happening with the culture today. And so LVMH, which has been around for 70 years, if not more, getting close to 200, has been able to, like in the last 50 or 60 years, it's become really a luxury powerhouse. But what it's been able to do is to keep its heritage and allow new brand leaders to come in and out. And I think of what they had, Virgil Abloh, and he came in and impacted it and brought a whole new set of people. And then you have Pharrell Williams. So Pharrell, these are people that are helping drive brand heat. And I think a lot of what luxury has done with the changing of designers in the last 20 years is copying what Nike did so successfully until the last few years of dropping limited editions, creating brand heat. Just Nike did it with sneakers. A lot of the brands did it with handbags. It's not the Bruno Cucinelli story, but it is the story that you saw very successfully done at LVM, at Louis Vuitton. And I think like luxury isn't fashion, and fashion is always about trend, but luxury has to play into what's current and real, but also stay apart from it because it is higher than. And luxury is, one of the things I feel part of what's blurred and made luxury fall apart at this time, and it's a confluence of a lot of events, is they've broken brand promises because you don't feel exclusive and special because they've been going after growth. We access the brand to say something about who we are. And we think about them personally. And that, like, we're happy to follow a designer from Gucci to Valentino because we want to see what he's going to do there, right? I think there is a lot of musical chairs in the designer seat, but also we see that in the wider business world. And look at what happened at Nike, right? We have a new CEO coming in after 3 or 4 years, and they actually went back and pulled someone who started there as an intern. But so I think businesses do that. Businesses give people an allotment, a short period of time to make or break results. The truth is you can't turn around anything, and you really can't make a statement for a minimum of 2 years. It takes longer than 2 years to actually have your vision come to fruition, and for big brands to actually get around the organization and know how everyone works and know the pockets of opportunity.
What do you guys think about the sale of Off-White? You mentioned Virgil Abloh, Marie.
Yeah, I think it's and at the same time they are picking up a piece of Montclair, and who knows whether that will lead to a deeper investment in the future. I think with Virgil gone, they don't have the same leadership over that, and I also think street is no longer luxury.
Yeah, this dual move by LVMH goes back to a point that you just mentioned, Christine, about quiet luxury and this bifurcation. They're tapping back into, if you think of Montclair as really a quiet luxury brand, it's done exceptionally well Even as other brands have, dropped and declined in sales, they've been resilient, along with Hermes and Cucinelli and Zegna, all those brands. And yeah, Off-White is streetwear, although luxury streetwear. And I think it's carved out a very nice US flavored niche for itself. But that is actually indicative, this move, of doubling down on quiet luxury and moving away from anything that is perceived as more trendy. LVMH has consistently, cleverly, they're unstoppable. They've built a very nice stable of brands that are either straight up quiet luxury or aspirationally quiet luxury across the board, across all of their segments. And I think that's been really the key to their success. Those are brands that I buy, and I may own Loewe. I will likely hand it down to my daughter, who will say, I love that handbag, and so on it will go. Richemont is another great example of these quiet luxury, but as investment pieces, things that you buy now, but your daughter might wear, and then her daughter maybe someday will still want it. Hermes is a perfect example of that, for example, and any of the other quiet luxury handbag brands.
Go back in your mind to Bill Blass and Halston and Pierre Cardin, and they suffered from death by licensing. You have the more commercial brands. Gucci in-house followed the same pattern, which was hyper growth, hyper commercialization. And so the Loewe's of the world have really become true luxury.
Gucci could not even keep up with demand.
Mm-hmm.
They created something that was so different and special and new that went into Gucci's heritage, but also made it like incredibly fabulous. And at the same time, you had the casualization of luxury, and you had a new generation entering luxury. And so all of a sudden, like sweats became part of luxury, and sneakers became part of luxury. And people were buying, instead of buying loafers, they were buying sneakers for $1,000 up to $2,000. And even Chanel had them on the wedding, right? In their wedding show. So it's like, they were a movement, and it reminds me really of the Great Recession, when you had the investment bankers, Chuck Prince, saying we had to play as long as the music was playing, right? And as soon as the music stops playing, some people are going to fall. I feel like Gucci was swept along, and through it all, Marco Bizzarri was saying, this is not going to go on forever. We realize that we can't, but people were not listening to him.
Mm-hmm.
The same, the excitement of that, people don't listen to the sane voices in the room. They keep thinking this is going to grow, and it doesn't. It can't. And it even hits the law of large numbers. There comes a point where, like you talked earlier about some of these companies putting up great numbers. It's easy to put up a great number if you're a small business, right?
Once you dominate the market, posting that level of growth becomes much harder because you're working off of a much larger base.
Right.
Back to your example about Gucci. So Gucci, with the introduction, and speaking of new designers, Sabato De Sarno, right, the Ancora collection, that was moving away from the aesthetic ideals of the old Gucci towards a much more understated aesthetic, right? Truly quiet luxury. And what have we seen? Mixed results, right? Or it didn't quite have the impact that they were hoping it would have. Maybe it takes more time, but maybe it's just a matter of you had the right aesthetic at the right time, and another brand might not have. Gucci is all about being opulent and being vivid colors and luxurious and in your face, and Gucci should stay that way. But with Gucci, to Marie's point, this over-democratization, trying to be all things to all people and growing very quickly, may have been what really is now impacting it. And trying to switch aesthetic directions to be a quiet luxury brand was an attempt to tap into that trend. But is it believable? Is it credible that Gucci is doing that? Because that's no longer Gucci. So that's what I mean about, again, going back to honing in on who's your core customer and who do you want to be. And you cannot be all things to all people, ever, as any brand. And the moment you try to do that, you're losing yourself. And that's not just luxury or retail fashion. That's true for any brand.
Didn't Gucci under Michela change the core customer of Gucci? And a lot of it was fashion driven. And Christine, this reminds me, and Silvia, you may remember too, how top of mind Tommy Hilfiger was in the late 90s, and then lost it in the early 2000s when there were more legitimate street brands.
It's a very fine balance between adapting and moving into different directions, or succumbing to the pressure of micro trends that we're seeing right now. Like you blink and there's another trend that's taking over. It's a very fine balance. And I would say even for quiet luxury brands, for any brand, that balance between staying fresh through new creative talent, innovative ideas, concepts, and so forth, but remaining true to your DNA. And especially if you're a quiet luxury brand, how do you do that? How do you remain quiet while always staying relevant, right?
I love Hermes. Hermes has so much color. It's not quiet. It's not quiet. And when you wear Hermes, you can tell that you're wearing Hermes, whether it's like the understated clothing and the understated footwear, or the overstated opulent scarves.
I agree with you. Quiet does not mean quiet. It means iconic. It means classic. It means recognizable, but not in a way that's logo driven. And now we're seeing with quiet luxury, we're seeing a quiet travel, quiet hospitality, quiet travel trend as well. This whole notion of quiet, understated is really taking over across many segments of luxury.
It makes me think of what Tony Springs said this year when he took up the reins at Macy's, and he said the consumer does not want endless aisles of anything. They want a curated point of view, which is quieter. It's easier to navigate, right? In terms of like our head being able to comprehend choices, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I think we're over bombarded as consumers, oversaturated. There's a sea of sameness oftentimes, right? We can't even keep track of it anymore. And yeah, eventually a fatigue sets in and you say, I just want to go to something that's a known entity. I know what I'm getting. It's a great value proposition. It's simple. It's curated, just like you said, Marie.
Like leading up to the Great Recession, you saw many luxury brands benefit, and quasi-luxury brands and fashion designer brands benefit. And then when the Great Recession hit in, all of a sudden, limited amount of money, people said, I'm going to buy things that hold their value. And that's where quiet luxury also fits in.
What always comes to mind when we talk about quiet luxury to me is Patek Philippe, and that that campaign that you're not buying it for yourself, you're buying it for the next generation. That's what quiet luxury is. That's what it's really, investment value and lasting purpose, or this long lasting element that it has.
Yeah. That is one of the foundations of what luxury is academically.
Yes.
So that is, as the student here, that was going to be my question. You guys really, the lecture was great, because is quiet luxury really the true luxury? What is luxury? Right. The passing on generationally, not the trend, not the sneakers. Are we really logo driven? Does the logo date it, and then it's no longer transferable generationally?
When I started to teach classes in luxury, I said, all right, I came from the business world. And I knew what luxury was as a business. But to actually teach it as academics, I went back and looked and said, really, luxury exists up there. And what does it mean? Because many brands partake in luxury. For some people, Starbucks is a luxury. Sailboats are luxury. Vacation is luxury. Time is luxury. Wellness is luxury. What do all these things have in common, right? There are values that we aspire to. And when we think about luxury, we have to think about it in a business sense too, right? It's easy to explain the difference between luxury and fashion, because fashion is about the latest trend. And designers are generally fashion designers.
The definition of luxury depends on who you're speaking to, and also what time period you're in, because it has evolved over time. Consumers around the world, we're living in a much more global place. It used to be 20 years ago, if I went to Paris and I wanted to buy a Parisian brand, I was looking forward to that trip because I knew I could only buy it there. Since then, that brand, because it's been successful and everybody travels and sees it, has expanded globally and it's available everywhere. So I'd say it's not as luxurious anymore because it's easier to obtain. Luxury in the course, the definition of luxury in the course of an individual's life, who maybe begins consuming luxury as an entry-level customer. So Marie, to your point, when I'm 15, a Coach bag, or at the age of 16, a tiny little Coach bag is luxury, but then that changes when I'm 30. And then over time, eventually, I can afford an MS bag, maybe ideally. So what you consider luxury changes over the course of your life with your level of sophistication. And what we've seen over the last 20 to 25 years is that consumer groups globally have become more sophisticated. This is why today you can't expect the same growth from, notwithstanding what's going on in China economically, but that consumer is so much more sophisticated today than 20 years ago. And we're going to see that in India now as well. That's beginning to shape itself in India, where we're going to see that happening at accelerated growth. This learning curve in sophistication and luxury, what you aspire to be or what you aspire to possess is going to change very quickly.
I really want to thank you guys.
Oh, thanks for
Thank you so much, Christine. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thanks. I really loved it.
As
Thanks.
the student here, you guys are epic. I learned so much, and I look forward to learning more. Thank you for watching What Just Happened. I'm Christine Russo.